The air is thick with a dangerous kind of complacency. Look around you. Wall Street is celebrating milestones predicated on a handful of tech giants. The mainstream media parrots the line that inflation is vanquished, and the Federal Reserve insists that the soft landing is still attainable, perhaps even achieved. But what if I told you that beneath this veneer of stability, the financial structure of the entire Western world is not merely cracking, but actively dissolving? What if the official data is a deliberate obfuscation designed to keep capital flowing into paper assets just long enough for the wealthy and the connected to secure their escape hatch? This isn't hyperbole. It is the stark, unvarnished assessment of one of the greatest contrarian investors of our generation, Eric Sprott. He is sounding an alarm bell so loud, so insistent, that to ignore it borders on willful financial negligence. Sprott doesn't see a soft landing. He sees a cliff edge obscured by regulatory fog, and he is urging every sensible investor to prepare for a recession so profound, so structurally rooted, that it will redefine wealth and scarcity for the next decade. The time for deliberation has expired. The window for preparation is closing, and once the final economic domino falls, the volatility will ensure that any attempt to adjust your portfolio will be too late and far too costly. Sprott's argument hinges on a fundamental disbelief in the Fed's narrative, specifically concerning inflation and debt. For months, we have been told that the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, is cooling, that the tightening cycle worked, and that we are returning to a benign 2% inflation environment. But those figures are statistical sorcery. They strip out volatile elements like energy and food, the very things that constitute the bulk of the average household budget. When you look at the true cost of living, the insurance premiums, the non-discretionary housing costs, the skyrocketing price of necessities, the reality is that inflation is sticky, persistent, and structurally embedded, especially thanks to years of unprecedented monetary expansion. We are not experiencing disinflation. We are experiencing a temporary deceleration of an underlying hyperinflationary trend driven by decades of profligate government spending. This leads us to the heart of the conflict, the unmanageable mountain of U.S. debt. We are currently staring down a national debt figure that is staggering, pushing past the $34 trillion mark and showing no signs of slowing down. But the number itself, as gigantic as it is only part of the threat. The real existential danger lies in the servicing of that debt. As interest rates were aggressively hiked by the Fed to combat the inflation they claimed was transient, the cost of rolling over this astronomical debt has exploded. We are now spending hundreds of billions of dollars annually just on interest payments, a figure that is quickly rivaling the entire defense budget. This expense is non-negotiable and guaranteed to crowd out essential government services, further destabilizing the economy and placing incredible strain on fiscal policy options. Sprott observes that the United States has entered a vicious, inescapable feedback loop. High rates are required to fight inflation, but high rates guarantee higher debt servicing costs, which forces the government to issue more debt, injecting more liquidity into the system, which reignites inflation. It is a monetary doom loop that ensures the only long-term outcome is the destruction of the purchasing power of the dollar. The financial establishment cannot admit this because to do so would trigger a crisis of confidence immediately. Their only choice is to maintain the illusion of control until the very last moment. And this is where the recession truly begins. This economic rot is not theoretical. It's manifesting in sectors typically seen as the backbone of the American economy. While the headline unemployment numbers look acceptable, they hide a massive surge in part-time employment and a decline in labor participation rates. The commercial real estate market is collapsing under the weight of empty offices and maturing debt that cannot be refinanced at current rates. Regional banks, already weakened by unrealized losses on their balance sheets, are tightening lending standards, effectively starving small and medium-sized businesses of the capital necessary to survive. This credit crunch, hidden from the stock market headlines, is the precursor to mass bankruptcies and job losses that will cascade through the entire consumer economy. So, if we are heading into a storm fueled by uncontrollable debt and persistent inflation, what is the anchor? What is the lifeboat? This is the critical juncture where Sprott's thesis moves from doom forecasting to proactive strategic defense. He argues vehemently that the traditional hedges, T-bills, short-term bonds, or even cash, will prove completely inadequate. Cash is simply a claim on a depreciating liability. Bonds are exposed to principal erosion when the inevitable pivot to lower rates, or outright monetization, occurs. The only safe harbor, the only asset class that truly performs when central banks lose control and systemic risk dominates, is physical precious metals, gold and silver. And if you are finding this granular breakdown of monetary policy and structural risk helpful for charting your own financial future, please take a moment right now to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support ensures that we can continue bringing you these crucial deep dive analyses from the greatest financial minds operating today. We need this information disseminated widely before the panic truly sets in. The mainstream perception of gold and silver is outdated. They are not merely relics of a bygone era. They are anti-dollar assets, essential portfolio insurance against central bank failure. Sprott has meticulously tracked the flows, and what he sees is unprecedented. It's not just retail investors buying small coins. It's central banks worldwide engaging in a massive, coordinated accumulation effort, repatriating gold and divesting from U.S. Treasury securities. Why? Because these sovereign entities are equally aware of the debt spiral and the diminishing reliability of the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency. This central bank buying spree fundamentally alters the supply and demand dynamics, turning the metals market from a cyclical trade into a one-way street driven by geopolitical desperation. There is simply not enough physical gold readily available to meet the demand that a true flight to safety will generate when the recession, or worse, the currency crisis, hits full force. Sprott's key insight here is that the price of precious metals is fundamentally disconnected from the paper market manipulation that occurs on futures exchanges. Eventually, the physical reality must assert itself, and when it does, the repricing of gold and silver will be explosive, not incremental. We must understand that this recession will be different because the tools used to fight the last one are exhausted. In 2008, the government could bail out the banks, drop rates to zero, and unleash quantitative easing. Today, rates are already high, the debt is far larger, and the public confidence in the Fed's competence is severely strained. They cannot print their way out of this debt without causing immediate, debilitating hyperinflationary symptoms. Therefore, the preparation Sprott advocates is not about timing the market. It is about permanently shifting your wealth outside of the failing system. It is about understanding that physical gold is not an investment seeking yield. It is preserved energy, a universal medium of exchange that cannot be digitally confiscated, diluted by excessive printing, or rendered worthless by national bankruptcy. This realization is the necessary first step in protecting your financial legacy against the coming economic reckoning. The critical decision point is upon us. Are you going to listen to the whispers of caution from true financial veterans like Eric Sprott, who built their fortunes by being contrarian and correct, or are you going to ride the paper market euphoria down to zero alongside the consensus? The market will not give you a gentle warning. The drop will be violent, sudden, and complete. We must move now, strategically, deliberately, to secure our position. If you are serious about understanding the precise mechanics of this wealth defense strategy and what quantities of physical gold and silver are appropriate for your specific financial profile, then you absolutely must ensure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on. We have established the terrifying foundation: uncontrollable debt, systemic inflation concealed by fraudulent metrics, a collapsing credit structure, and the urgent need for a physical anchor. In the next part of this deep dive analysis, we will transition from the warning to the definitive action plan. We will delve into Sprott's specific allocation strategies, the reasons why silver may outperform gold in the early stages of the panic, and how to source and store these assets securely. The recession is coming, and your preparation must be immediate and decisive. Do not wait for the headlines to confirm what the smart money already knows. Prepare now. We have charted the perilous waters, but charting the danger is only the first step. The critical question remains: what does Eric Sprott tell us to put into the lifeboat? The overwhelming evidence, according to his continuous observation of the monetary policy machine, suggests that the supposed stability enforced by central banks is nothing more than a carefully constructed mirage maintained by endless intervention and the dangerous illusion of solvency. This is the crucial error the general investment public continues to make, believing that the Federal Reserve still holds the steering wheel. Sprott asserts they absolutely do not. They are merely passengers, handcuffed to a runaway financial train fueled by decades of unprecedented debt monetization. This impending shift is not merely a cyclical downturn, it is a systemic generational failure of confidence, and confidence once shattered is the most difficult asset to retrieve. The immediate conflict that defines our current moment centers squarely on the sustainability of the U.S. dollar's reserve status, coupled with the fragility inherent in a banking system dependent on continuous liquidity injections. Sprott maintains that the massive monetization efforts, trillions poured into the system to maintain artificial treasury prices and shore up collapsing bank balance sheets, are precisely the death knell for the dollar's long-term global credibility. We are currently engaged in a massive real-time sacrifice of long-term economic stability in favor of fleeting, politically convenient calm. The patient is receiving massive doses of painkillers while the underlying infection rages unchecked. This context of inevitable currency debasement is the foundation upon which Sprott constructs his definitive investment strategy. When fiat currency is systematically devalued by politicians unwilling or unable to control spending, assets outside the system become essential. The key characteristic these safe haven assets must possess is the complete absence of counterparty risk. You cannot default on a commodity that exists physically in your possession or in a secure, allocated vault. This brings us to the core of the Sprott thesis: precious metals. His calculus is brutally straightforward. When everything else is denominated in a rapidly diminishing unit of currency, only real money retains its purchasing power. We are speaking specifically about physical gold, and perhaps even more critically, silver. Gold serves as the foundational monetary insurance, the ultimate anchor against systemic chaos. Silver, however, is what Sprott often refers to as the ultimate leverage play. It possesses the dual function of being a historically recognized monetary metal, while simultaneously being an irreplaceable, vanishingly scarce industrial input required for the green energy transition and advanced electronics. This combination means silver is poised to perform explosively when the monetary crisis hits, propelled by both speculative monetary demand and relentless industrial consumption. Let's delve into the crucial mechanics that Sprott highlights, the very open loops that the mainstream ignores. The physical market reality starkly contradicts the paper market illusion. Over the last decade, capital expenditure in the mining sector has been severely neglected. It takes nearly a decade to bring a significant new mine into full production, requiring substantial capital and facing immense regulatory hurdles. This lack of investment means that even if gold or silver prices were to triple overnight, the physical supply could not respond quickly. This tightness is not theoretical. Sprott has pointed consistently to the dramatic exhaustion of registered inventory in key COMEX vaults. The paper financial game, the manipulation of futures contracts, and the creation of synthetic supply cannot withstand the relentless pressure of physical demand much longer. That disconnect, paper abundance versus verifiable physical scarcity, is the pattern interrupt that guarantees explosive price action when global investor confidence finally shatters. We are sitting on an unprecedented spring load of potential energy, waiting for the trigger of a major bank failure or a definitive sovereign default scare. Before we escalate to the ultimate conclusion of this warning, I urge you to consider the immense pressure under which these central bankers are operating. They are fighting a war against inflation with one hand tied behind their backs, because true inflation-fighting measures, sustained high rates, would immediately collapse the debt-laden system. They are trapped. If you find this unfiltered, deep dive into the real mechanics of the economic system valuable and necessary, please hit that like button right now. Your support ensures that this critical, contrarian analysis can reach a broader audience who desperately need this perspective. So, where do you position yourself? Are you passively waiting for the mainstream financial media to finally admit that the R word is here, accepting the inevitable lag that comes with consensus reporting? Or are you strategically positioning your portfolio before the rest of the herd realizes that the only available gates are closing? Sprott insists the time for serious accumulation is before. The panic sets in, not during it. During panic, liquidity vanishes, premiums soar, and obtaining physical metal becomes a logistical nightmare. The grand revelation in Sprott's framework is not merely the prediction of a recession, but the defining nature of that recession. It will not be a typical V-shaped recovery engineered by the Fed's easy money policies. Instead, we are barreling toward a stagflationary depression. This means a vicious combination. Asset prices, traditional stocks, non-essential real estate, will decline severely in real inflation-adjusted terms, while the cost of absolute essentials like food, energy, and certain commodities will continue to rocket higher due to persistent currency debasement. The pain will be broad and deep, amplified by the inability of the government to borrow its way out of the crisis without accelerating the currency's collapse. Sprott's conclusive definitive advice closes all the loops established over the course of his warnings. First, move aggressively out of sovereign debt instruments. They are guaranteed return-free risks in a high-inflation environment. Second, minimize exposure to traditional financial and banking equities, as the ongoing stress and potential for contingent liabilities remain far too high. And most critically, dedicate a substantial, non-negotiable portion of your investment portfolio. He consistently suggests 5 to 10% minimum to physical bullion and the carefully selected, high-quality mining companies that are positioned to thrive when the ultimate payoff occurs, when gold crosses $4,000 an ounce and silver breaks the critical $50 mark. This isn't speculative fantasy. It's the mathematical consequence of unmanageable debt meeting unconstrained money printing. The window of opportunity to exit the conventional financial matrix and secure tangible wealth is rapidly nearing its end. This is not theoretical economics for academic discussion. It is the fundamental strategy for self-preservation in a collapsing monetary paradigm. When the system finally bows to the historical inevitability of its own leverage and debt burden, the only assets left standing will be those that require no promise from a politician, no guarantee from a central bank, and no faith in a debt instrument. That inherent independence, that foundational honesty of physical wealth, is the ultimate payoff of heeding the urgent warning delivered by Eric Sprott. Do not allow this vital, critical insight to be drowned out by the noise of the bull market cheerleaders. Review your portfolio allocations immediately and realistically. Share this urgent message with everyone you care about who might still be complacent. If you haven't yet secured your position, the time for deliberate action is now, and most importantly, ensure you are subscribed to this channel for more unfiltered, high-conviction perspectives like Sprott's. We are entering the defining phase of this financial restructuring, and proactive vigilance is the only currency that guarantees survival. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next critical update. Finally, engage with us in the comments below. Are you already positioned in physical metals, or are you waiting for the fear to reach its fever pitch? Your perspective helps the entire community prepare for what is coming.